we shouldn't sit back passively as citizens and let the market do everything by itself. It's essential that citizens, through their governments, extend education and training to broader segment of the population. That, I think, is the only effective way of dealing with the force for greater inequality that new technology is inevitably going to bring. I don't think it's realistic to say, well, we shouldn't innovate, we shouldn't bring in new technology. That's looking backward, and even if we wanted to stop such innovation, we're almost powerless to do so, and we would probably be hurting more people than helping. But what we can do is to bring the lower part of the skill distribution up a bit so that they can benefit from this new technology as well. We know from many countries around the world that it's the people with skills who benefit the most in time of rapid economic development. So thanks for your question.
Hello. I was wondering, how do you think the failure of global markets to reduce inequality impacts the culture of peace?
That's an important question, and I'm afraid that inequality and peace do not fit together very comfortably. One of my arguments for why it's so important that we do something about inequality is precisely that inequality and instability, which includes violent instability, go together. So for the sake of peace, both domestic and international, there is an additional reason beyond the moral reason, beyond the desire to address poverty, for doing something about inequality. Very, very important question.
Are there any examples of developing countries today that have been successful in reducing inequalities? And if so, how have they done so?
Well, let me go back a little while in time to South Korea. South Korea is no longer what we would call a developing country. It's a pretty rich country. But if you go back 40 years, it was not. It's come a long way in a relatively short time. And it's my view, and I think there's a lot of evidence to bear this out, that one reason why it was so successful in not only developing quickly, but developing in a way which did not introduce huge inequalities, is because of the importance that the government placed and still places on education. I've spent a fair amount of time in Korea, and I have come to appreciate that people there are obsessive about education. Korean parents, I'm not necessarily saying that this is a good thing, but Korean parents are the pushiest parents that I, as a professor, have run into. They want their kids to succeed in education, and that's that may put some pressure on the kids, but it's a culture which has allowed Korea to come a long way quickly. Now, when I'm saying of course, translates into government policy. That is, if the population of the country demands good education, then government is going to have to provide it, and that's precisely what happened in South Korea, which has not only some of the finest universities in Asia, but also some of the best high schools as well. I know because I had a chance to meet a fair number of high school students too. So let me use South Korea as an example.
From your studies and understanding of game theory, I mean, you specified education as a mean of to this world. Is there any other factors to consider for today's world?
Of course, I certainly am not endorsing education as the panacea, as the solution to all economic problems. There are many other things besides education that an enlightened government must attend to. Let me step back and say why it's important that governments play active roles in a country's economic life. The oversimplified view of what economists say is that it's not necessary for government to intervene in the economy because markets will solve all problems by themselves. That's oversimplified because it ignores some very important markets which do not operate very well on their own. And these are typically markets where the good being produced is what we call a public good. A public good is a good which, if I get to consume it, you automatically get to consume it too. So national security is a public good because if some of us enjoy national security, everybody in society enjoys it. And that's why national security is a good which is not provided through markets, it's provided by government. A good environment, clean air, limited CO2 production. this is also something which benefits us all as a public good, and therefore will not be provided adequately by markets. It must be provided, at least in part, by the government. Education, I already mentioned. If I get more education, that benefits not just me, but you too. And so education is a public good as well. There's a whole range of public goods that it's government's job to provide that we cannot expect markets to provide. So I was talking about education before, but the environment, national security, and correction of financial markets, all of these are essential ingredients to a healthy and well-developing economy.
Thank you.
As you know, the Doha rounds of talks are about to start. Do you think developed countries can play a role in removing the barriers to free trade? And if so, then how?
Yes, I do think that developed countries are critical to the success of free trade, but as I was suggesting in my remarks before, free trade comes not just with benefits, but with costs. And one major cost, if left uncorrected, is increasing inequality. So one thing that rich countries can do, and I think morally should do, is to assist poor countries in the investment needed to prevent the inevitable inequality that freer trade is going to bring, to at least be mitigated. It's never going to be eliminated, but we can mitigate it by bringing a greater fraction of the population into the global arena, allowing a bigger fraction to enjoy the benefits of global markets. That, I think, is the most important thing that the rich countries can do to make an investment in the very poorest people of the world.